All right, welcome back. So this episode I'll talk about just walking, and this one called the hallway. Every day I've been walking 400 meters, and 400 meters a day, basically is kind of my goal, or even 800 meters. So overall, the distance between who I was and who I am is what I'm going to be talking about today. So talk about the truth about hallways first. So here's something nobody tells you about hallways. Nobody actually walks them. People rush through them to get, get to somewhere else. A hallway is really the in between. Part of the building really nobody talks about, nobody photographs. The part you forget the moment you step out of it into another room or to another place, right? Except me. Now I'm walking a hallway now. Okay, and I'm walking in like it's a finish line because it's now part of my daily routine. So let's talk about where I was before I started walking more and without exhaustion. So on day one, when pretty much I was low to the point where I needed to get to the hospital, okay, after my near coma, which uh, that Valerie had woken me out of. If I had not been awakened, I would have been in a coma. But Valerie and the EMS medics, as she had called, especially at that time, they came by and realized that my blood sugar was at 18, and also not knowing that I was at 10% cardiac output, which means I was only pushing back into my body 10% of the total blood that was available, basically oxygenated. So I was having trouble sitting up from bed and even getting out of bed to walk. Yes, simply to walk. Okay? So here's the full list of what my body could do or couldn't do. First of all, what it could do at that time was 2 steps, three on a generous day or in a generous time, and I couldn't do it alone, and I was never going to do it alone. So even just to walk, I was holding on to Valerie's shoulders to assist me in walking, but that still didn't help me. Okay, Valerie had me by the arm, holding me upright, and pretty much like I was a wet newspaper, basically folding down. I couldn't really stand up straight. But every 3 steps in, the room basically would tip. I would be dizzy, or I would just feel like I just can't go. Feel like I had to run a marathon after 2 steps, and I'd have to stop. Not because I wanted to. I wanted to walk. I wanted to go forward, but because there was no air left. Also, I was short of breath, so my lungs had walked pretty much off the job. Short of breath. That whole term itself isn't a phrase when you're living inside it. When you're actually being part of it. Shortness of breath is really something that is a struggling factor. It's a door slamming shut in the middle of your chest. Okay, so going back 3 steps, and pretty much I was finished. Okay, 3 steps, and really pretty much I felt like I was a man drowning standing straight up. So basically, that was a moment when we were trying to get to outside the house to the car to get to the hospital. But pretty much I just said I had to sit down by the stairs, and I just decided, hey, call the ambulance to get me to the hospital. So now, so we do the math, okay? Do the math with me. Now in the hallway, I'm walking 4 laps in this hallway unit, okay? And 4 laps around a hallway pretty much adds up to about 400 meters. I calculated that. They had the they had it measured and pretty much calculated it's about a quarter mile. That's not a stroll. Pretty much that is 1 lap around the track. Okay, that's pretty much me lapping the building, and also lapping the guy that was on day one, okay, which was my version of myself on day one. I was lapping that guy who couldn't even make it to the doorway outside the house. So the other thing too is, and here's the part that still gets me. While I cover those 400 meters, I talk. a real conversation, with the nurse the entire way. And I'm not gasping, not stopping, not begging the floor to please hold still. Just a guy walking, talking, breathing like breathing was always free. And I felt better. So I've improved a lot in the past 6 weeks from that day one. So when nobody tells you, nobody tells you that progress doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ride in on a white horse as a brass band or with a brass band. It shows up quiet, 400 meters at a time, every day, disguised as a boring walk down the boring hallway beside a nurse who has no idea she's standing in the middle, of a comeback. In my mind, is what I'm thinking, because my goal after heart transplant recovery is to get back into running, get back into physical shape, and running to a level where that I could be. Okay, so I went from 2 steps in shortness of breath to now 400 meters, which is 4 laps in a hallway, while talking and still not being tired. So that's a big improvement. That's the distance I will be traveling, and maybe I'll do 800 meters. I'll double that. And because it's pretty much, I'm not going to be stopping at 4 laps. I'm going to keep going. And later on, I'll try to film something where I'm walking, and so that way you can watch me and see the evidence of how I improved, or how I improved. All right, so again, thank you. That's an update. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, with another update, see what's going on. But you guys have a good Friday. Have a blessed Friday, and make it a good day.